How's it going, everybody?
Hey, how's it going?
Are you able to hear me okay?
Yep.
I'm actually in my car today, so I wasn't sure how this would work out.
Out on the go, huh?
Well, our summer schedule got changed up, so I'm sitting in a parking lot on Tuesday mornings around this time now. So we'll see how it goes. If it goes okay, we'll just keep it this way. If not, well, we might have to reschedule, but it'll be all right. So yeah, I'm in my car. I'm on my Surface laptop 4, and then I've got an additional screen. Let me see if you can see this.
Ooh, fancy.
It's a almost an 18-inch screen, and it's all powered just off of USB-C. So it's coming off of the laptop's power. Doesn't require any external power at all, which is kind of cool.
Who makes that one?
This one's made by Toolbar. I never really heard of them before, but I just because I wasn't able to go to Oklahoma for the Mamba meeting since we were in quarantine, I decided I would get an extra screen to work at the kitchen table with. And so far it's pretty cool. I'm pretty impressed that I can work off of it without having to have any extra power. So I don't know how long it lasts though. I mean, we're on battery completely, running 2 monitors, and it says I've got 56% remaining. So we'll see how long it lasts. Anyway, good to see you guys today. Josh reminded me that last time we talked about the shape tool and never really got to the text portion or editing text with the shape tool. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Unless we've got other things that you need to cover, that's what we'll do first, and then we can go to any questions you have after that. So I'm going to share that Toolbar screen, and you let me know if you can see it.
Yep.
So if we start with some text here, I'm just going to type in a date, December 12th, 2020, something like that. Right now I was using the text tool, but I switched over to the pick tool. But what we're going to talk about is the shape tool here. So if we switch over to the shape tool, the first thing that you'll notice is a cursor blinking. So that's where the where your cursor is. So if I were to start typing text, no, that doesn't work either. Oh my gosh, guys, this is going to be crazy today. You would think I'd practice this kind of stuff. Get rid of that, get rid of that. F4. There we go. Okay. Anyway. We've got this new handle here, and then we've got another new handle here over on the right. And then we've also got white dots before each one of those characters. And so we'll talk about first the toolbar or the property bar up here, and then we'll talk a little bit about how it works when we're messing with things. So on the property bar, the font is first. I think that's default that way, that when you are using the shape tool, the font is first. I might have messed with that, but I'm pretty sure that's default. And I like it that way because that way the font drop down is over here and it's not over the top of everything. So you know, if I had these characters selected and went and changed the font, it's changing it for me on the fly, and I can kind of see how it's changing without the font drop down in the way. And so I actually like the font drop down over here on the left as opposed to over on the right, or in the middle, I mean. But we'll just go ahead and change to this font, I guess. Font size, easy enough, same as if you were just editing with the text tool, except what you can do is you can grab your characters just by these nodes, and you can either click and drag around them so that you're getting multiples, or you can click on one and it's going to turn black, the one that you click on. Or I think you can hold Control And that way you can click on multiples maybe. Let's see. Nope, control is not working. So let's try shift. Okay, shift lets us do multiples. So then if we change the size up here, let's just say 2 inches, it's going to change just those selected ones and not any of the others. That's going to look silly, so I'm not going to do that. But let's say we're looking at this font and we're like, well, you know, I don't really like that the dates are, that the numerals are smaller than the December part. So we can grab just those and then make these slightly bigger, 1.125 or something like that. So then they would be about the same size, right? So that's an option there, being able to just select the ones that you want. The next thing up here is for variable fonts. Now, most monument fonts, I don't know of any variable monument fonts yet. It's on our wish list of things to create, but if we switch over to a font that is variable, and you'll know that they're variable in the font drop down because they have this little icon that says VAR on them. If we scroll through, I'll see if we've got any other ones. Not really. I've not installed any on purpose on this machine, so I don't know if I have any. But this bond script one is one that just comes with Windows. And so if we switch over to that font, what variable fonts are is it lets you adjust properties of the font depending on what the font creator lets you do. So in this case with bond script, it's just the width and the height. But what you can do is as you move these sliders, it's going to adjust those properties of the font. So width, or yeah, that was width, and weight. Not I said height before, but I meant to say weight. So it's making it thicker, more bold. And so these are pretty powerful in that you can make all these changes and have different versions of the font all within a single font file, which is really cool. But that's what variable fonts do. And some of them have a lot of different options. That's only 2 options on that one, but that's what that button does. The next one over is bold. So if your font allows bold, you can just hit B or hit this and it will switch over to the bold version of that font. Let's go to something like Arial that's not going to be very bold to begin with. All right, so we're going to take all of this and make it Arial. So if we grab just these ones here and hit B, it'll make those the bold version of Arial. So you can see how that's thicker. If the font also has the options, italic, most everything's going to allow you to underline. I don't know that we would necessarily do that a whole lot with monuments, but it does give you that option. So these, in order for the bold and the italic to actually work, your font has to have versions that are bold or italic. It's not going to simulate. So it's not just going to build a bold or an italic version on the fly. The font creator has to create those versions first in order for it to actually work. So for the majority of monument fonts, actually all monument fonts, I don't have any. Well, I used to have a Vermarco and a modified Roman that had a bold, but I don't. That's not true. I do have the MD Prime ones, which is based off of Palatino. That actually does have a bold version and an italic version. So if we grab those, we can do bold, we can do italic. So I take that back. But they're not technically monument specific. They're just ones that we really liked. So we made versions that would work well for our use. So bold and italic, the next one over, horizontal character offset, says specify the horizontal space between text characters. So if you click on this, you can add more space between these two characters here, and it's offsetting that letter E. And so it's not really messing with where the rest of the characters are located. It's simply moving the letter E over. I've never in real life used that for anything. Same with the vertical offset. You do the same thing going up and down. I've never actually used that for anything at all, but that's what those do. And then the last one here is angle of rotation, which again, I've never used it, but you can rotate your text that way if you wanted to. Superscript and subscript. These would work, I guess, if you're trying to write like 12th or something like that. You can take the TH here and tell it to be superscript so that it goes up above the text, or you can tell it to be subscript, which would then drop it down below. I don't think this is super popular here in the States, but I think they use it more over in Europe for being able to do subscript and superscript type stuff. So we'll just disable that. And then small caps, if I were to select that, it's going to change that T and an H to capital letters, small capital letters, not large ones. If I switch over to this one, it's all caps, which means it's going to show up as capital. As far as the screen share goes, is it coming through okay? And I keep getting a thing that says my internet connection isn't very stable, but I don't know if you see that or if it's working okay.
It's a little choppy here and there, but overall it's good.
Okay. Good. Okay. So that leads us to the very last button up here, which is to edit paragraph and artistic text properties. And all this does is it opens up the Docker, the text Docker. So that's over here on the right-hand side. And then you've got all sorts of different properties over here that you can mess with. Again, almost none of this stuff I use for monuments, other than maybe the down here, the line spacing and that sort of stuff. I've used that, but none of this middle section here, I don't really use any of that. Might as well just collapse it. So these do expand and collapse when you grab them here. So paragraph, I think, is probably the one that I would use most often. And you can also, which is nice, change the font over here on the right, which again, then the font drop down is over here out of the way. So I do like this as well, that it is not over the top of my design. So if I had, if I was trying to match something, you know, a lot of times I don't know exactly what font it is. And so I will just kind of scroll through the different available fonts until I see one that's matching. Okay. So that is everything on the property bar itself. If I wanted to actually use the shape tool for something in monuments, we'll go like this. We'll choose a font that actually makes sense. Okay, so with the shape tool, actually let me do a full. I guess I'll never die, right? Okay, so we're gonna go 1.25" on my name. That was kind of weird. And 1 inch. So if I wanted to edit the spacing between my characters, just visually, I can grab this handle down here and drag. And if you drag it in and out, what it does is it changes your character spacing, which is the space between each of those letters, including your spaces. If you hold Shift while you do that, then it only does word spacing. So between each of your words, it will edit the spacing there. And so I use that a lot for trying to figure out spacing as I'm doing things on the fly. I usually do it visually this way as opposed to a number. So I will just kind of pull that in or out and hold Shift to get my word spacing the way that I want it to be. And that's for left and right. This one over here is for top and bottom. So if I change my spacing here. Now by default, what happens when you hit enter, when you type in text and then you hit enter, Corel is giving us a percentage of the height of the line above it as your line spacing. So you'll notice that there's more line spacing here than there is here. And that's because my top line is larger. And so percentage-wise, it's giving me more spacing there at the top. So if I pull this up until that matches up, this is already overlapping. And that's simply because of the way by default it spaces is based off of a percentage of the height of the line above it. In monuments, more often than not, we're going to space our text off of a specific number, which is why we've created the spacing section of the Docker over here. So that way we can tell it, we want to have half-inch spacing or 1 inch spacing or whatever the case may be. All right, any questions on any of that stuff? What I did there. Okay. And the only other thing is that you can manually move letters too with the shape tool, which is nice if you really ever needed to. You can grab them and pull them, grab the ones you need and then just pull on them. And if you hold control while you do that, then it stays in line. So it's going to not move top or bottom. If you don't hold control, then it's going to just, as you pull on it, you might, go too high or too low. So if I'm moving characters over, I'll often hold control while I'm doing that so that it stays in line. Or you can use your nudge, your arrow keys, so left and right. And this isn't really the shape tool, but you can use the text tool and put your text cursor in between characters. And I believe it's Control Shift and then the comma button or the less than symbol, and then Control Shift and the greater than symbol will also let you adjust spacing in between two characters just off of keyboard shortcuts. All right, let's get rid of that. Okay, so I think that pretty much covers the shape tool when it comes to editing text. I don't think there was anything else that I wanted to talk about on that. Let me just make sure here. Right-clicking gives a context menu. So if I were to say align to baseline, it's gonna pop that back down. So if you accidentally moved this too high, you can right-click on it, say align to baseline. The baseline of text is if I move my cursor up, it's the very bottom of most of those letters, like the 2 and the E. It's not the bottom of the comma, because the comma goes below the baseline. The 9 goes a little bit below the baseline. But if I move my cursor over the text, it's going to show me where that baseline is. And so that's also set by the font creator, where that line goes. And so if I were to drag like this, if I get down to the baseline, it's going to show me that I'm snapping down there as long as I have snapping on. But if I'm really too far away, I can just right click and say align to baseline. Another thing is that sometimes you're messing with text and you're applying different things to it or rotating or whatever, and so sometimes it'll mess things up. You can right click and say straighten text, and it gets rid of any of those crazy things that you had done to it. So if I right click on this comma, it should move it back to where it was before. So by straightening text, it's going to remove all of that manual editing that I had done to it. And you can do that as a whole as well if you had the whole line. So let's back up a little bit. So we've got our 9. Let's move it a little bit further out of the way. So we've got our 9 messed up and our comma messed up. And if we go up to, see if I can hide this. No, that's not the right button. Can you guys see the oh, here we go. Move it over there. There we go. Okay, so if we take this and go to text and say straighten text, then it's going to fix all of that all at once for us instead of having to do it on each individual piece. Analia asked how to have the property bar on the right for text. Analia, I'm assuming you're talking about this text over here, the Docker. You can always get to the Docker if you go up to Window, Dockers, and then Text here. And then you can also get to the Dockers over here with the little plus sign. But is that not what you're asking? You're saying the top. How to have the property bar on the right for the text. Top on the right. I'm not quite sure.
I think she's trying to get it, like you have your text bar at the very left on your thing. She wants to know how to get it on the right.
So if you wanted to move any of these things, like I've moved it over here, what you can do is you hold Control. No, sorry, not Control. All we're going to do is hold Alt. If we hold Alt on the keyboard, and while we're holding Alt, we drag it, you'll see it moving, right? And then if we put it right here at the very end, you'll see a little gray mark as to where it's going to go. And then we're just going to let go, and it will then move it over to there. So we can do the same thing with the size if we want. We hold Alt, drag it over, and let go. This is all Workspace type stuff. So by default, CorelDRAW has it in the center here. I moved it over to the left, but if you move things like this, if you're moving the way that your tools are and the location of the tools, I would suggest, if you like those settings, to instead of working off of my Memorial Designer workspace, okay, to create your own workspace. You can create a new one based off of this one, which is the way that you would want to go. But if you make a new workspace that has your settings and your changes, then when I do an update and, if it reinstalls my workspace, it's going to overwrite everything that you've changed. So you can actually create a new workspace and tell it to base it off of mine, but then you can say Analia's workspace or something. I don't know if it can have an apostrophe, but we'll give it a try. This is my custom workspace. Okay, so we'll put that there and click OK. So now we're working off of that workspace, and then you can make all of these changes that you want and set things up the way that you want it, so that it saves to your workspace, and then you can back up your workspace in case anything were to happen. But so that way you've got your workspace, and it looks like you can do an apostrophe, so that's good. If you ever wanted to save this workspace to either bring to a different computer, or in case things were to crash and get corrupted or something, if you just go to export under workspace and just check all of these boxes, so all of them is what you would want to take out, and then you just hit export and it'll let you go and save that file so that you can go and get back to it later if you ever needed to. But yeah, thank you, Aaron and Analia. That's how you would do it. Okay. Do you guys have anything else that you wanted to cover as far as how to do certain things?
I can't think of anything.
Josh, you got anything that you've been dying to learn how to do?
No, man, this is all good info, though.
All right. And how about you, Analia? I want to say that you had sent me an email. I think I replied to it. I hope I replied to it. Let me see if I replied to it. Let me double check here. I'm going to check my email from Analia. Line spacing. Yeah, so Analia had asked in an email how to change line spacing when you've got multiple lines of text. And I've got a YouTube video on that already. So I just sent her to that. I think that's about it, though. She did ask about cutting. When you're sending stuff to cut, how do you know if there are duplicated objects? So let's talk just a little bit about that. And if I do a full design like this, okay. Actually, maybe I'll just open up I don't have it set up on this machine. We'll just do it this way. Okay, so if I have some text here. See, now my thing was not where I was expecting it to be, so I lost it. Okay, so I've got some text. I'm going to create a panel. And maybe I'll mirror that over the other side. Put this up here. So if I had this all laid out like this and I was ready to cut it, because I laid it out, I know that there aren't any duplicated items. But if I were to accidentally Control C, Control V, now all of a sudden I've got duplicates. And so the question is, how would you know whether there are duplicated items? If I take this and I send it to my plot page, okay. I don't think you're able to really see that, you know, there's multiples of this, there's multiples of that, there's multiples of this. You can grab your pieces, and we've been working on this remove duplicates because what remove duplicates did in the past was it would actually take and break everything up by nodes, or at every node it would break it up so that it could try to find individual line segments that were duplicated. But because it was doing that, it took so long, and it would often, when it tried to rejoin everything back together, not work the way that we wanted it to. So in our latest version here, we're having it not do that anymore. It's only looking for exact duplicates now. So if I grab all of these and hit remove duplicates, it's going to tell me how many objects that it deleted, which in this case was 54 different objects. And if it had any things that were overlapping still, so let's say like this, it would tell me that there aren't any duplicated items anymore because it hasn't, you know, it had already deleted all those, but there are overlapping objects. And so it's going to actually color the overlapping ones blue so that we can see those. And the way that it works is it's only going to color the last, it's not going to color both of them that are overlapping. It's only going to color one. And so it goes based off of the order. So it found this one and colored it. But if I were to do it again, where it goes the opposite direction, then it will tell me that there are 4 overlapping objects because the 4 of these objects overlap this one here. So you can visually see, you know, which ones are overlapping by running this more than once to see, you know, where they're at. And this is pretty easy. I mean, you can see that fairly easy. But if there were little pieces that you didn't know, so let's say that there was a piece that was in here and we didn't really know that that piece existed. Then when we run this, it shows us our overlapping objects again. But if I run it again backward, then if it's an open object, it actually gives you different ends now. So it gives you these X's on the ends. So that way you can more easily see those open objects and delete those as well. So hopefully that's helpful as far as seeing or deleting duplicated objects before you go and cut, because it's always good to make sure that you're not cutting things twice unless you're doing it on purpose. With like the Allen data graph or any, you know, pinch roll fed type plotter, you don't really want duplicates. On the flatbed cutters, I'll often take this very outline piece and duplicate that. So it's now copied and pasted on top of itself. And that way it will double cut that line. And so I can pull that panel out without having to manually go in with my stencil knife and cut that out. But on a roll cutter, you don't really want to do that. So, all right. So I think that answers that question. Another question that she had is when it comes to text, so the font drop down over here, these numbers are not very monument friendly, right? We've got 0.083 inches, 0.1 inches, 0.125 inches. The reason for that is that these are the inch versions of the default, which is actually point sizes. And you can't add to this list other than if you were to type in a number. Actually, I don't even know if it does. I don't think it does add to the list at all. So you can't add to this list. All you can do is come up here and type in 2.5. If 2.5 is what you want and it's not in the list, you have to go in and type it in and then hit enter. And that way it will apply that size for you. We would like to make that a little bit nicer when we get our monument text docker all sorted out and more robust, that you'd be able to add in, nicer sizes in here. I don't remember if it automatically adds them or not. Let's see what happens. No, it doesn't either. So anyway, for now, you have to type it in. If it's something that's not in the dropdown, you actually have to go in and type in the number. And then you hit enter to apply it. So those were good questions there. And then the last question was about knockout. And this is probably one of those things that people have the largest or the biggest amount of trouble with, is that if you are using the knockout tool, so let's just grab knockout and click in here. So I just knocked out the center of that panel by using knockout. It's going to now show through to the polish. But if I don't hit escape to end that knockout tool, and I just go on with, with life changing to different things and whatever else, let's say we go to run a different tool and whatever the case may be, what can happen is the code that we're in for the knockout tool can get stuck because we never ended it. And so now things are not working the way that they're supposed to be working. Things aren't showing up, like I'm switching pages and it's like not refreshing, and all of a sudden it looks like the whole program is not working. And that's because really the program's not working because I never hit escape to get out of that knockout tool. You have to hit the escape button to get out of knockout, or it will stay in knockout indefinitely. And that's because the way that it has to work, or the way that it works, is because we allow you to make multiple knockout clicks. We had to make the choice that either you only get to make one click and it automatically ends, and then you have to go back and click the tool again, or we'd have some, a key to get out of the tool. And so that's why it works the way that it does, is because we want to let you click, 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 click to knock things out, and then just end your selection after that, end your knockout after that. But as you can see, things are not showing up correctly anymore. And that's because, simply because of getting stuck in all that code. And now it won't even let me close out of the program. So I get this question quite a bit, what's happened. But for now, that's just how it is. You just have to remember to hit the escape key. Otherwise, it's going to mess things up. So if you've ever run into that, that's very possible that was the issue. All right. Well, I think that's all of the things that I really wanted to cover for the day. And again, since I'm mobile right now, it's probably best to just keep it at that. If you do have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we will shoot for next week. I think, I guess I should ask you, since my schedule has changed on Tuesdays, we've got the option of going back to Fridays because my schedule is fine on Friday mornings, so the same time, or we can adjust the time on Tuesdays and do it later in the day. I don't know what, my fear with doing it later in the day is that you run into, you know, having customers come in and that sort of stuff. So I don't know, what are your thoughts on meetings after this?
For me, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. I mean, like when we do them now, I take my lunch a little early and then come in and do this. Later in the day, I'm more likely to be setting, you know, or something else outside the shop.
Okay.
So, I mean, the lunchtime thing works good for me. And then since you're out, you know, west, then obviously earlier isn't going to work much better for you. So, you know, lunchtime for me is fine.
So my Tuesdays now, I've got appointments from 9 to 11 Mountain Time. So if I got in at 11, if I got back at 11:30, are you Eastern or Central, Aaron?
Eastern.
Okay. Yeah, so that would put you at 1:30.
Yeah.
Let me think. And what do Wednesdays look like for you guys?
Wednesdays would be fine for me.
What if we switch to Wednesdays at 11 instead?
I'm fine with that sort of thing.
Okay. Let me double check. I'll double check the calendar and see if that's going to work best on my end as well. And then we can figure it out. It's 12. It's during my lunchtime. We have 2 hours difference here in Canada. So Annalia's with you, Aaron. She's over on the east.
Yep.
And that works out okay for you, Annalia, to have it during your lunchtime? You're on the East Coast too, aren't you, Joshua? Not East Coast, but you're on Eastern time? Or are you Central?
Negative, we're Central.
Where are you at? You're in Tennessee. Where?
We're northwest of Nashville a little bit.
Okay. So you gotta be pretty close to where that cuts off, where that goes from Central to Eastern.
We are. I think that is in between Nashville and Chattanooga, maybe.
Gotcha.
I think Chattanooga's Eastern. I know Knoxville is. So.
Okay. Okay. I'll do this. I'll figure out a good schedule and then I will email everybody an updated link because that way the meeting time will be updated and let everybody know. So I'll have to do that and that'll just run through the summer that way. As a side note, we did just run for 48 minutes, something like that, not quite an hour. And we started out, I said what did I say? I had 56% battery left or something. Now yeah. I'm down to 16%. So it used up 40% of my battery, which isn't bad, running a meeting and running 2 monitors. And, you know, I don't think that's half bad actually.
No, that's pretty impressive, really.
Yeah, especially for I can't show you the size of this machine, but it's a 13-inch Surface laptop, and so it's super small. But yeah, kind of crazy. Annalisa says she prefers 11 instead of 12. That would be 9 o'clock my time. Do you guys like it a little earlier, your time?
That'd be fine by me.
Yeah. Because the other option is I can do it 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do 11 o'clock Eastern on Wednesdays. That'd be good. Let's shoot for that. Let's do 11 o'clock Eastern. So that's 10 o'clock Joshua's time and 9 o'clock my time. And we will do that next week, the 14th. That's my wife's birthday, and she'll be super happy I did it early in the morning. That'll work out. We'll make it work. All right, so we'll see you all next week, and we'll go from there. Thanks for being here today, guys.
All right, thanks a lot. Take it easy.
You too. Bye.